From the beautiful metaverse, more specifically, beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition, and this is Midday with Reverend Don. And we're a couple of minutes late today because of technical problems, but here we are, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you are here too. And hello to Janet in the chat room. Good to see you, Janet. With me is Sir Ed Hubbard, and we're going to talk about which college.
Um, Good to see you. Yep, and terrific. I just went through a frustrating several minutes with my laptop, so it's always interesting. Um, technology gives and it takes away sometimes.
Well, and that's that. I mean that's part of the subject we're here to discuss: technology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Technology has its frustrations, but my goodness, it allows us to do things we couldn't do before. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, how many years ago was it when doing this, sitting here talking on the same screen, would have been a hugely expensive proposition that very few people could do. Um, I often remark on the first time we did live streaming, we needed a tea tray to put all the equipment on,
Mm-hmm.
and then it failed halfway through the broadcast because it was so new and the building wouldn't didn't cooperate with it. At least that's how I remember it.
Yeah, pretty much that was it. I mean, we were having to use hotspots. That
Yeah.
was a big thing. You paid extra for them. I had quite a few. I did that, and that the buildings were Faraday cages. The what was linkage was weak. That was 2000. That was just not too long ago, 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, it
And
was
now we
over 10
see,
years.
and now we're seeing us able to broadcast everywhere. Last night on What's Rising, Mary did a live report from one of the places on where these protests are occurring, which is becoming a big problem, I guess, for a lot of communities. Is that we're starting to see pagan events once again being boycotted, or more importantly, protested, not boycotted,
Mm.
protested.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It I mean it's very concerning and somewhat flattering at the same time
All right, and
because I
then
mean you have to be somebody to be protested.
no, I don't believe that. I believe Christians are Christian, evangelical, right, dominionist, whatever you want to call them.
Hmm.
Don't need anybody. They'll make it up, and the fact
Well,
is,
that's
they
true.
are they are making it up. I mean, I've seen a lot of that where they've made up the straw man. They actually don't expect to find us. Sometimes when they find us, they're like, "Wait, you're real? You there?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hello to Lynn
So
in the chat room.
yeah, and so yeah, and so which college is about? One of the things we want to cover is that we want to help people with political protests. We want to figure out how to be. I want us to become. I think one of the things people don't understand, which college is really about upgrading the community to give it some of the skills it really needs to continue.
Mm.
Which school, which is still doing very well, which is still across the board, I've explained to people is about identity. Which school taught a lot about identity, how to get into the community, how to act, and man, did that grow! 12,000 over 12,000 people have joined into like communities and that sort of thing. And now we've seen hundreds of thousands of people incorporated. So that was really about identity. And so we've moved on to that. This is about how do we live in the world, which college is really about. So we've got, like yesterday, we have teachers who are going to try filling out teacher accreditation so we can teach our children. There's businesses going to be involved. The Witch Starter classes, we've gotten commitments from a number of people uh, to do that class. And what that's going to be is the 12 module 6-week class that we're going to start out with on January 11th. $25. You can join that site. Okay, and people have asked me about Witch School because you and I founded Witch School, and they're asking, well, is this anything to do with Witch School? And to a certain degree, yes. To a certain degree, no. In the sense of that this is an extension of Witch School, only in the spiritual sense, only in the
Mm.
project sense. It's ran by its own operation. We will accept accreditation from Witch School, of course, and also Wolstein Academy, Wiccan EDU, Wiccan Seminary EDU, and the other schools that are formed. We're going to accept some of their materials as well.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Hello, lovely. Hello, Renee. They're all saying hi to you. They're so used to you.
Hi, Renee. Hello, lovely.
hmm And for Witch School members, if you sign up, in the next couple of days, we've got a couple more days, through the Kickstarter program, which is witchstarter.com, we will absolutely we will upgrade you to the next level. So, yay. Hmm?
And
So, if
hello
you
to
are,
Deb in the chat room.
yeah. So, any questions people have, I'm more than happy to. But I think people don't understand that. I think we've gone, so 22 years ago, 23 years ago now, we've seen this sort of amazing condition of the community. I mean,
Hmm.
over 22, 23 years ago, you couldn't get hardly anything. Okay. And that at this point, we don't really need, that sort of identity. Now, where we were the first of our kind. Now there are hundreds of these schools helping people out in a way to help them find their identity. And I think that's a great thing. I think people are always like, "Oh, wow, is there competition out there?" Go, no, there's no competition. The competition for us is against other practices that don't serve us well.
I think that's a very important point.
Mm-hmm.
That the fact that there are multiple operators is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The more resources the community has, the better we all are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, half the reason we started Witch School, as you were saying, is that people couldn't find resources,
Mm-hmm.
people who wanted them. So to have a largesse of resources in the community is a wonderful thing.
Right, and I think that ultimately, which college is behind another larger project, which is Psychic Academy, where you
Hmm.
decided to incorporate these two into one larger school because it was just easier. But more importantly, it'll give both sides of the fence a lot more space. And so there it is. And so, what do we need? We need people like we need great teachers who are going to teach us more than just witchcraft, which I think is important. But like one of the classes we're talking about you teaching is going to be about arch priesthood. What is the
Yes.
qualifications of arch priesthood? Hmm?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a very interesting class because it will, of course, it will be spiritual, but it's also going to be a lot more real world than many of the other things I've written. With the real world skills that you have to use to organize something,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you hold it in check? And I find watching the world that so many people don't understand what's actually involved in working with a group of people and keeping them on track. It's and that's a lot of what that class is going to be about.
And I can see that. I can see that. So one of the things I think people are not doing is like, so not only are you going to be doing arch priesthood, but we're going to get people to help us with temple management,
Yes,
church management, the legal rights management, copyright management. This whole legal group, I think, is very, very important.
it is.
And so people have been talking to me and says, "What do you mean by having to do? Copyrights are very easy." No, they're not. Hmm?
No, I've seen so much nonsense online about people saying this or that about copyrights who have no idea how they actually work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be really. I think it's really important to have some classes talking about what actually is involved with copyright and what you do and do not have with a copyright.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's important too because I do think that a certain amount of people don't understand copyright in a serious way. What is copyright? Copyright is the protection of written materials originated from an original mind. Now, that's important because AI is now doing it.
Hmm.
That has seemed to be unique and have value.
Yes.
And then you can copyright it for the entirety of your life plus 75 years in the United States. Britain's a little longer. Other countries don't have the same rules of copyrights. I mean, so
No.
the copyrights are different. And so people go, okay, there we go. So you could write a book called First Degree Wicca, and you can copyright the material, but you can't copyright the title because that's not copyright. Anyone
Mm.
could write a first degree Wicca book,
Yeah.
but if you steal the material from other people, which is one of the accusations against AI and plagiarism, I found out we're on the list. Oh yeah,
Oh, of
uh,
course we are.
Of course we are.
I mean, even
And so,
before AI, we were one of the most plagiarized sources.
mhm. So you have the copyright. What people don't understand is trademark. Uh, Corellian, for us, Corellian and Witchell were not trademarked. We couldn't trademark because they were considered too generic.
Mhm.
So trademarks are very specific, though I think we could do something now.
Yeah.
But trademarks are different. Trademarks are the actual name. I have an unfortunate, very difficult time doing anything with my name because two major people, Scientology for L. Ron Hubbard, and also there was an Eddie Hubbard in the radio world, and it's made it
Yes.
very difficult for me to trademark certain parts of my name. I can't actually use Eddie Hubbard in a trademarked way. And
Mhm.
depending on how I use it, I could be seen as infringing on another copyright. Now he's passed away, and the family's not enforcing it as much. But at one time, I was joking about Eddie Hubbard having the second generation like Star Trek because I got to interview him, and he was a big radio guy, did jazz, did all sorts of things. And he kind of,
Mhm.
he left in the '70s and he passed away in the '90s, later
I
'90s.
remember.
Yeah, but and he had a lot of fun knowing there's another Eddie Hubbard out there. But ultimately, I couldn't call my show the Eddie Hubbard Show. And
No.
yes, I used Eddie Hubbard as that. Even Ed Hubbard's hard, or I can't do the Hubbard Religious Center because of the trademarks of Scientology. So trademarks are very very important, and I think that's one of the things we want to teach at Witch College is this idea of what's the difference between a copyright, a trademark, a trade secret, which is yet another thing. Um, Trade secret is something that you hold inside your company. You use NDAs, you use things, but you never put it into a patent. You never put it to a trademark. You don't do any of that because people can steal that. They can then alter it. So these are things that we have to cover. So there's a lot about the next level of civilization, next level of culture that we need a lot more education, and we have the community to do so. For witch cats, I mean, do we have a veterinarian section? Do we start teaching us about veterinarians? And so that's where we get back into the idea of collegium. How do we advance ourselves with a collegium? Which means a group of people who are seeking certain rights, information, and privileges. And it was a way that I think people don't understand that pagans and a lot of cultures trained themselves right up until about, you started seeing the universities emerge about 1100 right before the Renaissance, which were more modern in shape. But before that, there were squares, and you would go out to this certain square, and that you would listen to these teachers, and you'd
Mhm.
bring them both food and money so that you could sit in their classes. And if you were really good at that, then one of the rich kids would come by, or one of the leaders would come by and say, "Oh, I want you to tutor my children. I want you to tutor my people," and then you'd make your money really from private tutoring. There wasn't this idea of a school, but there was the idea of private education, private tutoring. Most of it, public education is a relatively new idea, and it was
Yeah,
really,
certainly in its present form.
and that came out of a lot of it for in the Americas came out of Sunday schools.
Mhm.
And of course, Hearst, the great newspaper man, decided that he backed it for what? Because he needed to have factory workers who could read, and he needed people to consume his newspapers. So he needed to increase the literacy in the United States and other regions. And people don't realize is that public education was both for a Christian reason and also for a industrial reason. And that's why our schools still look like factories today. What we're going to do is we're going to take it and increase it even better, um, the next level. I mean, we're going to start teaching more information, and instead of being just confined to course and systems, we're going to have symposiums. We're going to have a lot of things that colleges do have. And people have asked me about this question of accreditation. And yes, we're going to pursue accreditation, but accreditation is a tricky animal. I see there's a lot of different forms of accreditation, and we're going to get work on that. But
And most
ultimately,
people have a very mistaken idea of what that actually is about, but that's another subject.
it's not really another subject. A lot of people think, let's go ahead and answer it. I think
Mhm.
most people think if there's some sort of accredited body who says, oh, this is the knowledge you need to have for this, and that in some way there's some sort of table of gnomes somewhere out in the world that stamps a college accredited or not college. And it's not worked with at all. There are associations
Mhm.
that gain a certain amount of strength, a certain amount of lobby, a certain amount of laws to protect themselves. At one time, you could become a lawyer without being a member of the bar. Today, you must be a part of the bar because at some point in our history, these lawyers went through there and said, we don't want anyone teaching lawyers. We need to have a certain level of it that we want to have in the courts. Same for doctors.
Hmm.
Same for almost everybody. There was a time that you just learned enough, and then they went to the courts, and they went to the lawyers, and they went to the bodies that said that these things had to exist. And to this day, I mean, if you have something like the Global Terror Association, let's make that up,
Hmm.
right? And you want them, and they can say, well, we're going to accredit schools of Thoreau. Okay. And then people go, well, why should we go there? Well, because that third party designation, even though it may not be official,
Hmm.
gives status. And we'll get some of that status. I mean, in certain organizations like microaccreditation and accreditation, I'm fully expecting, and I've said it before, for some of the scientific stuff, some of the skill sets. I plan to go to the major colleges, to the major companies that are offering those things and say, hey, how do we get a trainer? How do we get to be accredited on it? And a lot of them fill out the forms, take the classes, do this, pay the fees.
Hmm.
So accreditation is meaningful as far as it can get you a job, as far as other people accepting it. I hate to say it, after you get out of college and after a little bit out of college, your education is not as meaningful as your experience.
Hmm.
So we're going to put experience first inside which college. And yeah, we're going to work on accreditation.
Now, if people want to learn more about which college, where do they go?
So we have two places right now you can go. You can go to the Kickstarter, which is just a couple of days. And if you're a Wit School member listening to this, whatever level you take, you let us know when we are sending out the information surveys. We'll register you to the highest level. What does that mean? Wit Starter is $25. Right. And anybody can take that course, and that course is going to be one of the most comprehensive. I've got all sorts of people coming in. I have Hoodoo, Greg, um, and Eric out of Nashville with their Aroma G. Papa G is going to come in there. I've gotten Byron Ballard is going to teach a class. Jason Mankey is going to teach a class in Gardnerian. Jason, I've got Byron talking about doing one there. The only person I don't have doing a course for you is you, because I think we've asked for other members
Yes.
of the Corellian faith to kind of step forward, because we want to see that go to the next generation. But you're teaching other studies. I
Yes.
have all sorts of people teaching their form of witches, and they say, "Oh, is it just going to be Wiccan?" No, it's going to be all forms of witches. And I've asked a lot of people, and a lot of people are coming forward. I have over 30 teachers who said they're going to come forward to help me with this project. Yeah,
Well,
and
that's one of the things I was talking about the other day, that the scope is much broader than some of the things that we've done previously. Not broader than we wanted to be, but broader than we were able to be.
right. Well,
Because we always wanted the broadest scope possible.
I think Witch School became its highest and best self, and I think it is that, because eventually it found where it did its best job, which was creating a seminary to teaching out clergy.
Hmm.
I mean, now I'm starting to see more and more independent clergy groups, more and more people who understand the legal aspects of being clergy, especially here in the United States and in other parts of the world, where they're now getting their benefits from it. And it's a lot of different traditions, and it's new traditions, and it's old traditions. Hmm.
Yeah, when we started, the vast majority of people did not, at least in this country, have anything resembling a clear idea of what was legally required for clergy status. There were all kinds of
Hmm.
misassumptions going on.
Yeah.
And hello to Alyssa in the chat room, who's greeting us from Finland. It's good to see you, Alyssa.
Yeah. So that was just something. Yeah, we actually. So most people don't realize I put out a pretty definitive piece in the '90s that battled two of the larger organizations. One's which we've long since are now friends with, and that's
Hmm.
Circle Sanctuary, and we love them. We've worked with them, but at first they were not very happy with us. And Covenant of the Goddess, which today, I hate to say it, I still think holds quite a grudge against me.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
Over the fact that I was a paralegal at the time, and
Hmm.
I went into it, and I went into the courts, and I found out the real answers, and that it's just a legal designation of a quasi governmental official who can do four functions, um, which people know of. and that they were able to function with permission of that. And it only took three people to form a church which could produce legal clergy. There wasn't
Hmm.
any of these sort of that. And early on, the same gatekeepers who are, I think, functioning now, the same types of gatekeepers, wanted to make sure that our clergy was like the very best. Like it, instead of serving the community, they wanted to serve academia. They wanted to serve the government. They wanted to serve, protesters. They wanted to, so whenever he says, "Oh, this is Reverend so and so of XYZ tradition," as backed by COG, Covenant of the Goddess, they wanted them to say, "Oh, yeah, this is the very top quality of people," as per that sort of '80s, that desire of the highly educated individual. And I think they've made the same mistake a lot of academics have made, and now we're paying a huge price for it. Any academic who wants to get a plumber has to end up paying almost $100 an hour for a plumber. But that is created in part because they made it almost impossible for anyone to really become, you can't become a plumber. It's difficult. Now the trade shows are coming back, but a lot of people were like, it was like, oh no, don't let your kid be a garbage man. Don't let your kid be a plumber. Don't let your man be a handyman worker. That's lower grade work. And today, those individuals are making a small fortune compared to the kid that comes out of school with a PhD and can't find a job. I've literally seen people say, "Must need a PhD." The job pays $20 an hour. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so which college is going to be much more of that trade show, that trade college. Learn how to do psychic readings, how to run a psychic shop, how to build your influence. I mean, are amongst
Hmm.
the classes that we're going to teach.
Yeah. How to run a temple, for
How to,
example. You mentioned that one.
mm-hmm.
How to organize things.
Yep.
We want to say hello to Michael in the chat room. Good to see you, Michael.
Mm-hmm. And so I think we're into that part of the world now. I think it's hard for people to understand. So which education is deeply academic. I mean, there's a lot of academics, and we want to learn our skill sets, but no one's really trying to say how to build a better life. And that's where I think I'm going to jump. That's where I'm jumping into how to build a better life. What's a better life for you? What do you need to know to have a better life?
Yes, indeed.
And so I'm very excited about that. It's going to end in a couple of days, this first round, and then immediately we're going to open up a site for starting to get things going. This is turning out to be seed money. It's at 11.11, which I think is very interesting. I hope it goes higher. If it doesn't, so what? I mean, I don't care. I don't care about. I do care. Let me go ahead and phrase it. I would love to see it go higher, but at the same time, it doesn't need to at this moment.
Hmm.
As long as it
And
broke
that's
the five.
always been a very
Mhm.
sacred number, particularly to us.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know how to convey this more than anything else. If you're a member of Witch School, we'll increase your tier. Whatever tier you take will get you the highest one. If you take the $99 tier, which is a lifetime member, and anyone who's been on Witch School knows that's a real value. And if you believe in what I'm doing, um, terrific. And that I'll upgrade you to $299. If you're taking it for 1 year, 49, I'll give you a 99. But everybody should take this Witch Starter class. I think this Witch Starter class is probably one of the finest pieces that I'm putting together that I've ever put together. Because
I
it
would have to
doesn't,
agree with that.
because it's going to deal with the entirety of witch culture. Yeah, and we're going to have pagan one. We're going to have pagan education. We're going to have a lot of these sort of educations, and we're going to work with other people. If you're
Hmm.
teaching a class right now and want to be a part of our system, let us know. We can do individual class. We're going to do a lot of different things. So I'm really excited about that. From and probably because Psychic Academy, there's a very few students that are in Psychic Academy. We'll open up some of the classes to other people. But the fact that we're going to do a full fledged Psychic 101 to 401 as
Yeah.
we planned over the next 4 years and everything else. So people are asking me one other question: why $99? Why so simple? Well, one, it works for Witch School. It still works for Witch School, though they're $299 from $29.99. They've increased their value 10 times, but the site has increased 100 times value.
Yeah.
Um, that is temporary. This is where newcomers. We've always been very loyal to our newcomers and to people who get into us early. I mean, we've done that over and over again. And the third thing is important that it's going to be very much energy towards the community. What is the number one thing it's going to do? You're going to see, if you want to get into business, if you want to, do a better job of tarot reading, if you want to just be a better witch, if you want herbalism, to be part of a community is essential. Become part of the witch college community, and that's an essential piece. And you can do that very simply. It's even just taking a library card with all the books that we're going to have available, and
Hmm.
we'll talk more about. We know about the value of libraries, so that's a great thing.
Well, as a well-known woman once said, pagans don't have sacred books; they have sacred libraries.
That's Phaedra Bonowitz.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we're expecting
words
to
to
see.
live by.
Yeah, and we see that coming in. But I guess that's we're coming to the end of the show for today.
We are. We started a couple of minutes late, and we're ending a couple of minutes late, but we've given our full half hour.
Hmm.
Now, Michael asks in the chat room, will there be any course in wildlife care?
There has to be so I've got for permaculture. I've got Mark Brown leading that effort. If you don't know who Mark Brown is, look him up. He's like the leading thing. We're going to teach seed saving. Mark Brown is like he's not only a heathen, he's a Celtic Reconstruction and a Corellian of all things from his earlier days.
Yeah.
He, yeah, he's a first degree Corellian. Yeah, he's been there. But he's also going to be teaching about permaculture. And we're going to talk
Mm,
about wildlife and making permanent feeding forests. What do we need? It's really about what do we need for the next civilization? What do we need for the next culture? This culture is obviously, and you hear Byron Ballard talk about tower time. You've heard uh, Matt Aron talk about witchcraft should be the revolution. We're seeing all this sort of idea of a breaking of America, the climate change, um, war, conflict, all of this. How are we going to survive? So one of the targets we have is what is a community going to need to survive 300 years? What if this is the Dawn Star? And people go, what do you mean by that? Did you not know, and most people know, that universities surrounded by, which is usually surrounding a library, are the number one factors in civilization, the longest surviving aspects of civilization, that we have universities older than countries, even the
yeah.
countries that inhabit them. And that's essential because these cultures, these colleges, these collegium, these libraries regenerate civilizations. They regenerate cultures even when they have found themselves in luck. Why is it so important to burn a library for some of these cultures? The reason we don't know a lot about South American cultures is that the Catholics, let's be very specific, Hispanic Catholics, and some of the others would go in there and they would burn entire libraries to the ground.
Hmm.
Egyptian, we talk about Alexandria, but this has happened over and over again in Aztec. They did such a thorough job that we don't have any. We think of a lot of people think of Aztecs and Mayans as non-literate, but they were extremely literate,
Oh,
and we,
yeah.
but they got their, there. So wildlife care, absolutely. Emergency services, absolutely. It's a matter of getting both interest of the students, which will be very proactive. This will be very much that a system that makes it easy to put up content. Much easier today to put up content, 2,700 times easier than when we started. And then people who are willing to teach that course. We can also buy courses. We can also do one other thing that is unique. We can become a hybrid. We can work with universities, colleges, and other places where they will let people take their classes, and then we can accept them back into ours. So that when we start to look at accreditation, we can say, well, were you working with this college and this university and this group of people and create a hybrid? I mean, there are literally thousands and thousands of courses out there, millions of courses out there that you can take for free. MIT, Stanford. So what do we need at another college? Well, what we need really are guides. We need people who will help guide people over an entire lifetime, teaching themselves and teaching others. That's the value of Witch College, is that like Witch School, which is still people go to even if they've graduated some of the classes.
Yeah.
This is going to be continuation of that process of learn anything, anywhere, anytime. And so if we have people who need to take care of wildfare, wildlife, then we're going to either create the class, find the class, and work with them. So this isn't limited. And when I say learn anything, anywhere, anytime, it's a philosophy of the modern internet. And witches, regardless of their culture, pagans, regardless of their culture, knowledge gatherers of what of the culture, Gaius, regardless of the cultures, omniism, as they call it, the idea that all religions have some value, um, we're going to go ahead and work for it. What we're not going to teach is the apocalypse. Oh, wow. And there we go. And so, yeah.
Hello to Johnny in the chat room.
Hmm. And there we go. Um, and so we're going to teach a lot about that. Is there going to be Christian witchcraft taught? Yeah, I'm looking at some of the best teachers in the world for it. Why would we not? Knowledge is power. Knowledge forms our reality. Knowledge is everything that we can do. But it also teaches us to deal with the other two forms, which is violence, which we see in the protesters, and in the idea of money. How do we earn money? How do we make a better living? How do we manage our money better? All of this makes it into a witch culture. And do we want to have a witch culture? Hmm? Do we want to have a better witch culture? Do we want to have a better psychic culture? Do we want to have a culture of the future where questions become the real, where questions and the ability to think and the ability to be curious are going to become much more important than the answers. Answers are going to be easier and easier to find. But can we form better questions? Because questions are the real value in life.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true. Well, with that, we want to thank everyone for joining us. It has been a lovely time talking about Witch College,
Mm-hmm.
the future of occult education. And thank you, everyone. And let us close with our prayer as we normally do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do in our lives, and we ask you to help us to continue learning throughout our lives, to help us keep our minds flexible and open, and to bring in all of the knowledge that we need and desire and deserve in life. Help us to continue to grow, continue to function, continue to be enriched and to enrich our world. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you. We know you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And thank you for your presence. Thank you, Edward, for joining us today. And may you be blessed now and always. And we'll see you tomorrow.